China's already taken steps to shut down companies dealing in illicit trade of precursor chemicals. We're now, and we're not just going to trust that this is happening. We have to verify it. Congress also has to step up in this fight. Start by passing my supplemental budget request for national security priorities, including significant resources to help stop the flow of fentanyl into our country, as well as funds to strengthen support services for people struggling with fentanyl impacts.
President Biden yesterday claiming that the White House is already seeing signs that China is following through on the fentanyl deal reached with Chinese President Xi Jinping last week. Biden is also calling on Congress to act on the fentanyl crisis, he says. Joining me right now is National Border Patrol Council President Brandon Judd. Brandon, thanks very much for being here this morning. Well, the president thinks he's made a difference here with this agreement with Xi Jinping. Are you seeing anything at the border that makes you believe that the fentanyl is slowing down coming into America?
Not at all. First thing that we have to understand is China cannot be trusted. We understand that. We know that. But until we actually act like that, we're going to continue to have U.S. citizens die. The next thing that we have to look at is we have to look at the amount of fentanyl that is on our streets today. Any police officer, it doesn't matter whether you go to Chicago, New York, Miami, doesn't matter. Every single police officer is going to tell you that there is more fentanyl on the streets today than ever before. That clearly shows that China isn't backing down. We know that China is involved heavily in these organizations that bring fentanyl into the United States. They have their grips on these cartels in Mexico. And as long as that happens, we have to be worried that more United States citizens are going to die. There's nothing that President Biden can tell us about China that we can believe until we actually see the numbers, the amount of fentanyl on the streets go down. And that's not happening right now.
Well, the other day, General Jack Keane told me that he sees this, what's happening today is the biggest penetration of America from communist China that anybody has ever seen. And that includes surveillance, that includes fentanyl, that includes, Chinese nationals coming into America through the southern border. What can you tell us about this? Because last week we reported that it's actually 7,000 Chinese nationals that have entered America and been apprehended in the month of October. 7,000. That includes 4,000 plus at the wide open border, but also thousands more at the ports of entry. So what can you tell us about that story at the border right now?
There's so many aspects of border security that truly worries me. When you look at the number of people that are crossing into the United States illegally, then you look at where they're coming from, the countries that they're coming from. China is of great concern, especially when you look at the demographics. When you look at the people that are coming from China, these are young military-aged men that are coming from China. It's not family units. It's not like what we see from not Venezuela, but Nicaragua or other Central American countries. These are young military-aged men. That should give us pause. That should make us wonder, what is the reason for this? Then you look at around the world, when you look at Uzbekistan, when you look at Turkey, when you look at all of those countries that want to do us harm, that we know that want to do us harm, that are also coming here to the United States. There are so many aspects of border security that this administration continues to ignore. They continue to deflect. They continue to give propaganda statements like, we already see China doing something on fentanyl, when in reality we don't. That's just that's the propaganda that the mainstream media eats up, and then it deflects from the American public so that they don't understand until one of their children die from fentanyl poisoning. We have got to get a handle on this, and until we have an honest conversation, we're never going to do it.
Yeah, it's a good point to make on the propaganda, because China is also launching this propaganda war against America, whether it be, bad information about the war on Israel, suppressing support for Israel, amplifying support for pro-Palestinian rallies. It's all coming on social media, in particular TikTok. So there is, in fact, a propaganda war underway. But I want to get your take about the illegals at the border, because Immigration and Customs Enforcement deported an illegal migrant wanted for murder in Mexico. He had been living in the United States, even though he had previously been stopped at the border at least 7 times. After he was detained, he was allowed to leave the U.S. voluntarily without a final order of removal. He eventually made his way back across the border. Again, comes as concerns over the terrorist threat at the border grow. There were 13 illegal migrants on the terrorist watch list encountered at the southern border last month. more than the total encountered from 2018 to 2020 under former President Trump's term, Brandon. You're seeing it firsthand. What can you tell us in terms of people on this terrorist watch list trying to get into America?
Oh, you know, the first thing that you mentioned was this criminal alien that was here in the United States that was wanted for murder in Mexico. What we're seeing every single day is we're seeing a number of criminals that have records here in the United States. And by the way, we can't check the records in other countries unless they have an Interpol hit. We just don't know what the crimes that they've committed. Then, of course, you look at the terrorists, and when you listen to propaganda that comes from our own government, when you listen to Christine Abizaid, when she says that they have no intelligence that shows that these terrorist organizations are trying to seed operatives here in the United States. Well, look, the Israeli government didn't even have evidence that Hamas was going to attack on October 7th. We didn't have evidence that the World Trade Centers were going to come down. But when you look at that we've had 1,100,000 people just since Biden has been in office that have been able to evade apprehension. We don't know who they are, where they're coming from, what their intentions are in the United States. But what we do know is that we're seeing people in large numbers from countries that want to do us harm, that continually cross our borders illegally. This is ultimately going to do us harm down the road. We don't know when. What we do know is it's going to happen. That's one of the reasons why we've got to stop this right now. We've got to stop any future actions that might happen. They're already here, but we can stop what's coming tomorrow. They just won't do it.
Todd Pyro.
Brandon, great to chat with you as always. We did a segment on my show about somebody from Brazil who was arrested in Martha's Vineyard. In Brazil, he was to be sentenced, was supposed to be in jail for raping a 5-year-old child. I mean, think about the sickness of that. But in my research, it showed that this guy was in the database since 2019, and a simple fingerprint check at the border or anywhere, for that matter, would have caught this guy earlier. So my question is, I understand Joe Biden wants everybody to cross the border, but why don't we just fingerprint everybody so we can at least get rid of a majority of the bad guys who are coming into this country? Because that makes no sense. That is the simplest solution in the world.
Because we're completely and totally overwhelmed. When you look at the number of people that we're apprehending at the border, we don't have the resources to go through and properly vet people. Look, just in 2022, we released somebody that was in our custody that was on the terrorist watch list. We released a citizen from another country that killed one of our U.S. citizens because we didn't properly vet them. We do not have the resources to properly vet people when we're dealing with 6,000 apprehensions every single day. We should be somewhere around 1,000 apprehensions. We're at 6,000. We can't do the job that we're supposed to do.
One more reason that Texas Governor Greg Abbott is endorsing former President Trump in the 2024 race for the White House. He did so on Sunday. Brandon, I know you served Thanksgiving meals to border agents near McAllen, Texas, with President Trump and Governor Abbott, thanking them for their service. You also spoke at the event. Tell us the difference here. I mean, I believe we were at a 40-year low under President Trump when it comes to apprehensions, and we're at a 20-year high right now.
Yeah, what I saw down there was truly classy. We saw a president that was on a very strict time schedule, that was allowing every single individual to shake his hand, take selfies with him, take pictures with him, when he had his own staff telling him, hey, you don't have time to do this. But he didn't care. He cared more about these individuals who can't pay tens of thousands of dollars to come to some event to take a picture with him. He was willing to shake every single one of their hands, talk to every single person, take a picture with them, even though he was on a very time crunch. That shows you how much he cares about the normal person. He cares about citizens in the United States. He cares about everybody, and he will do the job. That's why we think it's so important to put him right back in the White House. All
right, we will leave it there. Brandon, it's great to talk with you this morning. Thanks so much. Brandon Judd, thanks for your service, Brandon. Happy Thanksgiving. We got Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer on the other side of this break. Stay with us.